Okay, yay! We're officially here for our Triggered Mamas class that has a really long name that I can't remember. But I'm so excited to do this. I have done a lot of Zoom classes before, but I haven't done this one. So this is new, and honestly, I kind of avoided this space for a while because I was like, I don't know if I just always want to talk about how it is with our kids because I never feel perfect in this area. And you sometimes can feel that imposter syndrome of like, I want to be really, really perfect at this before I teach it. But that's silly. Who's a perfect mom? And I have a lot to give as well as a lot to learn, but I figure we could all learn and grow together. So here we are. I'm going to pull up our slideshow. There we go. Welcome to the class with the long name. That is why you feel so triggered around your kids by mid-afternoon and how to actually stay calm and in control of your emotions in the chaos. Sound good? All right. A few things that we will learn along the way today. Obviously, this is not going to be exhaustive, but we're going to do an overview of stuff that maybe you haven't heard before, or maybe you have, but not in this context. And I really hope that it's very helpful for you. I'm all about staying away from shame. So any shame that you're holding on to as a mom, I hope some of that will be alleviated as we go through today. But what you'll learn today is why your brain and body freak out when your kids are too much, how to pull back from triggers instead of leaning into them, and how to help yourself feel calm more and snap less while helping your kids be calmer too. Give me a thumbs up if that sounds good to you. All right. Here's a little bit about me and why I am here. These are my beautiful children. This is Emmanuel and Serafina. They are 11 and 8, and they are the best. For those of you who don't know, Emmanuel, we adopted him 10 years ago. Last week was our 10-year adoption anniversary. He came from Ethiopia, and I was totally naive as a parent and as an adoptive parent, especially at that time. He was a baby, so we never had any warning that anything would be more difficult than with like a biological child. But he had trauma. He carried trauma with him. And because of that, long story short, I realized I had a trauma history too. And if I did not work on healing from my own trauma history, I would not be able to parent him properly because we would just be butting heads all the time, feeling the same pain as each other. And I was the adult in the situation. So, this is basically why I got into this field of work, because I wanted to parent my son in a way where he could heal and thrive. And it's changed everything for me, for our family, for him. And it's led me into this profession as well. So I'm super grateful for these babies. They're my favorite people in the world. Here's a little bit about me. I mentioned that I have a trauma history, which, is lingo that people throw around a lot. But what that meant for me was I lived in a home. This is me and my twin sister. I lived in a home where everything was chaos and unpredictable. So growing up in chaos and unpredictability, where you didn't know if you were going to get in trouble or yelled at, or if you were on good terms or bad terms, that created a lack of healthy attachment in me and my brain. And a lot of us who have experienced any kind of hardship, trauma, or pain along the way, which really you can't get out of being a human unscathed, right? Will have some things in our body that continue to show up into our adulthood as triggers. So that's just a little bit of background into where we're heading with triggers. But my nervous system grew up being very hypervigilant, which basically what that means is I was always looking to see where's the threat coming from, where am I safe, where am I not safe. And that's how I also came into adulthood. Again, this is me and my twin sister. I'm the one with the blue straps. So I also didn't really understand autonomy and how to be separate from another person. We did everything together. She's still my best friend. But if you can relate to any of those things, it's okay. Like we all have a story, right? So I'm going to ask you some questions. You can put a 1 in the chat anytime you hear a question that you relate to, okay? Let me check the participants really quick, make sure we're good. Okay, awesome. Have you ever gritted your teeth to maintain your cool with your kids only to lose it at some point in the afternoon? Yes, I see you. I see you guys. Have you ever felt like you are overly sensitive to the noises your kids make and wish you could just be like the other parents and not have it stress you out so much? Everybody. Me too. Have you ever felt lost when it comes to disciplining your child without getting angry? One with exclamation marks. Yeah. Have you ever wanted to run screaming and crying out of the house because your kids are driving you crazy by simply acting like kids? Hopefully all of these ones in the chat will help you know that you're not alone. And have you ever become so fatigued from parenting that you feel like you could fall asleep standing up? Yes. Okay. So this is my opportunity to normalize these things for you. Turns out most, if not all, moms experience these things all the time, from time to time, regularly. And we often hide those parts of us away, right? We feel ashamed, we feel different, so we don't talk about it. So I'm bringing it out into the open that this is a normal experience and you are not alone. And there is stuff that we can do about it, but it's important to understand where it's coming from. So let's move forward. Turns out you and your kids have stuff sending signals in your bodies. This stuff, the triggers, sorry, my slideshow. Here we go. These things. This was my previous slide that didn't show up at first, but here's the sciencey things that explain what's going on in your body when you're triggered. Sciencey. I have someone coming in. Ashley. Your autonomic nervous system, neuroception, and polyvagal theory. These are a lot of big words. I'm sure, Becky, you know all of these things. But your autonomic nervous system, that is basically your own personal security system in your body that's always scanning your environment for signs of threat. You could replace the word autonomic with automatic if that helps you understand it better. But these are, this system responds without you having to think about it. So imagine like you're walking down your hallway and your kid jumps out of the bathroom and screams. You're going to jump and have a reaction to that, right? That's an automatic response. You don't think about it. You don't think, oh, that's just my child being silly. I don't have to react. It's subconscious. So everything that happens here with your autonomic nervous system, this is like when you feel butterflies or you feel nervous or anxious, all of those feelings come from the autonomic nervous system. And it's basically saying, beep, 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 something out here is threatening to me. Neuroception is the process by which your autonomic nervous system processes incoming stimulus. So you could see that as like the video camera that's scanning your house all the time if you have a security system. Polyvagal theory is a simple way to understand where you are at inside of your nervous system and why you feel the way that you feel. So you don't have to remember all of these big words, but these are basically what we're going to talk about that honestly, I wish we learned about in kindergarten because they are this simple and they can change the way you see yourself, you see the world, and you see your kids. So like I was saying, turns out you and your kids have all these things sending signals in your bodies. You're all dealing with the same sensations. They just come out differently as an adult. So if you can see your children as feeling the way that you're feeling, and you can see yourself as feeling the way your children are feeling, everyone can have more compassion for each other. Okay, so polyvagal theory, which I mentioned, is based on this. This is the vagus nerve. If you have heard of the vagus nerve, go ahead and pop a one into the chat. But the vagus nerve is basically the longest nerve in your body. It runs from your brainstem all the way down to your intestines. It is super cool. It's fascinating. But as you can see here on this picture, there are nerve endings coming out all over, branching out all over your body. At the end of each of these branches, there are neurons. What that means is they have scientifically concluded that your body has thoughts. Like, think about that for a second. And actually, 80% of signals go from your body to your brain instead of from your brain to your body. Only 20% go from your brain to your body. So, what that means is when you're feeling sensations in your body's actually trying to send a signal to your brain about what is going on, trying to keep you safe, all of those things that we had just talked about. So it's really, really important for us as we're working through triggers, as we're working through anxiety or panic or any of these things, to not just focus on our minds, but to really focus on what is happening in our bodies. If you have felt uncomfortable in your body when you're dealing with your children, put a one in the chat. Because guess what? It is perfectly normal. Yes, look at all the ones. Okay. I just said this, but I wanted to repeat and put it out there in writing. Your vagus nerve and your autonomic nervous system fire and respond without your conscious awareness or assent. Before you're able to think a single thought about a situation, this system kicks in and causes your body to physiologically respond in certain ways. When you're feeling triggered around your kids, it's because your body is actually interpreting something you're experiencing as a threat. This is why you can't mindset your way out of being triggered as a parent. You have to do body work first. And I'm going to stop the share just for a minute so you can see my face. Yes, this applies to any time you're triggered, no matter where you are, what you're doing. So this, based on what we're talking about with the kids, this is really important for you to know. Like I said before, you can experience a lot of shame when you are triggered by your kids because you're like, shouldn't I feel warm and fuzzy around my kids all the time? But no, something that is going on in the scenario with your children feels like a threat to your body. So imagine if you were like a rabbit being chased by a fox. That rabbit isn't going to stop and think, oh, maybe this fox is nice and I can just sit here and chat with him. No, the rabbit's going to run off. And that's exactly how your body is responding to the threats that are coming at you as well. Like, oh, something is dangerous for me. So when we understand that and understand that sensations in our body are actually our body working exactly like it was designed to, we can start to have compassion for ourselves. And the good news is we can begin to gently and slowly show our body that it's safe in scenarios where right now it might feel unsafe. But that takes intentionality, compassion, and learning how to regulate, which is what we're going to talk about here in just a second. Go back to my share. Okay. So let's go here. We're going to look at the polyvagal ladder. So I mentioned polyvagal theory earlier. This is a theory that explains where you are in your nervous system. And this amazing therapist named Deb Dana created this polyvagal ladder to help lay people like you and me understand what is going on in our systems. So here at the top of the ladder is what is called ventral. Ventral is the space in our nervous system where we want to be most of the time, right? We want to feel connected. We want to feel safe. This is when literally your prefrontal cortex, which is this part of your brain right here, is online. You can think clearly. You can make decisions. You feel like an adult. You feel in control and okay with the world. You feel safe. Safety is where it's at for your nervous system. But as you get triggered or some kind of incoming stimulus comes at you, like, say, your child not responding when you call their name, or your child whining, or maybe even just your child being very, very loud. This can be a signal that will cause you to dip down into this ladder as a sign of threat. And as you dip down the ladder, you're going to get in a space called sympathetic. The sympathetic space of your nervous system is where you're going to be in fight or flight mode, which we've all heard about, right? This graphic says mobilized. What that means is like, I've got to do something. I have to do something to get away from this feeling. So flight would be like going into another room, doing the laundry, checking your phone, like whatever you need to do to get away from the situation. Fight would be like snapping at your kids, yelling, um, actually trying to do something to make it stop, which is where a lot of us end up in sympathetic when we're looking at our kids in situations with our kids. We'll just try to make it stop in the moment, like whatever we can do to control it, right? If you can relate to that, put a yes in the chat. We have all been there. But for us to realize that when we feel overwhelmed, agitated, and we snap at our kids, that we're in sympathetic in our nervous system is so powerful because we can begin to understand, oh, my body feels under threat. And we can start to rewire how we enter into these situations by showing ourselves compassion, which we'll talk about more in a minute. If you're experiencing a lot of sympathetic and the input is overwhelming, your body will eventually shut down into what is called dorsal. And dorsal is this state of being immobilized or collapsed. You can even think of like your posture. Usually, if you're in a space where you're depressed, fatigued, just over it, done, even your posture will feel like collapsed in on yourself, right? Down here in this dorsal space, your overarching thought will be, I can't do it. I can't get off the couch. I can't deal with you right now. I can't stay awake, whatever that might be. So really, this is another space where we need to show ourselves a lot of compassion because this means that basically our body thinks that we're in threat of dying. So if you can think about a possum that plays dead, we've all seen a possum play dead, whether it's in a show or in real life. What they're doing, what their bodies are doing for them is they're shutting everything down so that when the inevitability of their doom comes to eat them, they won't feel it. And that's what our bodies are doing. It's like, let's shut you down so that at least you don't feel the pain when you die. It's pretty crazy, right? It's like pretty intense to realize that when you get into that space, your body thinks you may be dying soon. Another opportunity to say, oh my goodness, I'm not a bad person. I am actually so overwhelmed in my body that my body thinks like I'm about to die. So this is where you can start rewiring how you talk to yourself too, like, oh, what do I need right now? How can I help myself through this? Um, oh, sorry, my camera just fell over. There we go. All right. This is a look at my very first polyvagal ladder that I filled out. So this is actually going to be one of your homework sheets that I gave you guys, which I'll also have a download code for you at the end of this video. But my very first week of somatic experiencing class, which I did an intensive for 4 months of somatic experiencing, I had to do this homework. This is our very first homework. And basically what this is you go through your own ladder and think about how do I personally feel in each of these spaces and put language to it that makes sense to you. So for me, when I'm in ventral and I'm at the top, I feel like I can handle anything. Like, yes, I'm queen, I can do it. And it's on a spectrum. So as I move down a little bit, I'm calm, energized, and focused. As you get down towards that line that separates sympathetic, I'm distracted, but I'm still energized. Then as I cross over that line into sympathetic, I'm in planning mode, but I lack execution. You continue to go down until I'm worried and anxious, panicked and shaky, and I can't function. When I'm in that space, I know I'm about to dip down into dorsal. When I dip down into dorsal, I'm okay, but I'm not excited. Keep going down all the way to depressed, lethargic, so exhausted I can't function. I'm sure you can relate to some of these, but I am going to actually send you this sheet to fill out, and you can start to get an idea of what it feels like to be in your body and put language around it. Because if you have awareness of what these states feel like in your body, you can start to grab hold of tools that can help you climb up the ladder back into a ventral space, which is super powerful. Before you learned this, you may not have even realized what was going on inside your body, that you felt under threat. But now that you know and you're going to put words around it, you can say, oh, I'm like at the bottom of sympathetic. I need to grab hold of something to help me climb up the ladder, which is where we start to take our power back and we start to take our wits back, and we start to be able to have a more connected and calm relationship with our kids. So let's talk about regulating our nervous system. Regulating your nervous system is basically first aid for your nerves. And why I say that is because you probably have a first aid kit in your house somewhere where, like, if you cut your finger and you start bleeding, you can grab a Band-Aid and put it on. So learning how to regulate is like that Band-Aid. It's not necessarily going to heal the root of the problem, but it will give you the opportunity to move up that ladder in the moment, which is so important and it's so powerful. Like, if you feel like, oh, I'm going to lose it with my kids, I'm going to grab something from my first aid kit to help me climb the ladder so I don't lose it with my kids. That's where the empowerment starts to come back. There's also healing that can be done so that you feel less dysregulated more often. But this first aid is the most important part when you're just starting to learn what's going on in your body. So regulation, basically what regulation is it's moving into ventral, or it's moving up the ladder. So either from dorsal to sympathetic, sympathetic to ventral, this is the process of regulation. Dysregulation, everyone has seen a child throw a temper tantrum in the middle of the grocery store. Maybe it was your child. I know I have been there. I have so been there. And what a lot of us don't realize is when that child is having a temper tantrum in the middle of the grocery store, they are completely dysregulated. So what does that mean? That means their prefrontal cortex, this part of the brain right here, which also is not fully developed in a child, has gone completely offline, and their amygdala, which is at the base of your head here, has taken over. And your amygdala is your survival brain. All it wants to do is survive. It has no other job than to make sure you get through this without dying. And for your kid, that will look like screaming on the floor. For you, that will look like potentially snapping at that kid screaming on the floor, picking them up and saying, snap out of it. Like, that's your amygdala taking over. But it's so great for us to realize, like, in those moments, our brain has gone offline and their brain has gone offline. It starts to help you see the situation differently and start to think about, how can I make my body feel better instead of reason my way out of this way that I'm feeling or my child's feeling. Self-regulation and co-regulation, kind of self-explanatory, but basically self-regulation is accessing tools to regulate on your own. Co-regulation is accessing tools to regulate with another person or even an animal, which we'll talk about more here in a second. Before we dive into these examples of regulation, I want you to remember your kids are learning to regulate by how you regulate, no matter what age they are. They learn from mom. how to show up in the world, how to process their emotions. And I don't know about you, but I did not have a good example of this growing up. It was total dysregulation in my home all the time. So that's why I've had to learn this as an adult. The good news is you can learn this as an adult and pass it down to your children. Do you need help calming down your kids down when your kids are driving you nuts? Try doing some of these together. I will tell you, this has been one of the most empowering and liberating things for me as a mom learning this stuff is that if I get dysregulated and I know I need to calm down, chances are my child needs that as well. So instead of like saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're doing that right now, get it together, I can say, hey, why don't we all breathe together for a minute? Or why don't we all grab an ice cube and get our nervous systems back online? Which also switches your kid's brain from being like, oh, I'm in trouble to, oh, we're going to calm down right now. Mom's showing us how to pull ourselves back together. So you can actually invite your children, obviously, depending on age and stage, into these processes of regulation, or you can do them on your own. One thing that I love to do when I do it with all of my clients at the beginning of every call is something called orienting. Orienting is a really simple regulating technique that helps you get back into your body. And the reason why it's important to get back into your body is because all of these feelings that you're having are likely coming from a threat that isn't there, or it's from your past. It's not in the present moment. You're not actually under threat. So when you get back in your body and realize, oh, I'm in the present moment as an adult, you can start to feel more in your prefrontal cortex, like, oh, okay, I'm okay. So what orienting is, it's really simple. You can do it anywhere, is you simply scan the room that you're in slowly. So you look around your space. You can do it with me now if you'd like. You look around your space, you're probably somewhere familiar. We don't spend a lot of time looking around at where we are. We're just go, go, go all the time. So when you stop and just scan your room, it tells your body, oh, I'm in a familiar space. I'm okay. I'm safe. I always look over my shoulder as well. When you look over your shoulder, it sends a signal to your vagus nerve that you're not being chased. Like, you know that in your brain, but like I said, 80% of signals go from your body to your brain, not from your brain to your body. So when you're looking over your shoulder, you'll calm because your body will understand nothing's coming after me. It's pretty cool. Another regulation technique that you can use when you're in sympathetic, you're going to lose it on your kids, or that you can use with your kids, is breath work. We've all heard of breath work. My favorites always involve exhaling longer than you inhale. Why? Well, think about, how do you breathe if you're feeling threatened? Everything stays up here. You're probably panting. You might even be holding your breath a little bit. So when you exhale longer than you inhale, again, you're sending a signal to your body, to your vagus nerve, that you are safe. Nothing's coming at you. So why don't we go ahead and do this one together? We'll do it twice. Once, I'll count you through it. A second time, you can do it on your own, but just notice how your body feels now, and then notice how your body feels after we do the breath work. So we're going to inhale for 4, hold at the top for 7, then exhale for 8. This first time, I'll count you through. So let's go ahead. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's do it one more time on your own count. Okay, Put a 1 in the chat if you felt your body calm a little bit by doing this. Yes, awesome. Awesome, awesome. I love breath work too. Okay, another regulating tool you can access at any time. And listen, I know you might be thinking like, but my kids, I just snap. They do these things and I just snap. Well, now, like I understand that, and we all do it sometimes. I still do it sometimes. But now you have an awareness that your body is not okay. So if you can even just take a moment to say, I need to breathe, I need to orient, you can take back your power and your control over that situation of yourself. And it's amazing what that can do. And your kids are learning that from you as well. So tapping is just tapping on different spaces in your body, and the vibration of that sends a signal to your vagus nerve that you're safe as well. It gets you back into your body. My favorite one, if you want to do it together with me, like there's lots of different tapping apps and exercises and things that you can do, but this one for me is easy to remember. So if you just tap above your eyebrows like 8 to 10 times. You just notice the sound and tap under your eyes on your cheekbones. Tap under your nose. Tap your collarbone and tap the bottom of your rib cage. It's really interesting. I've had a lot of clients say that this is the most helpful regulating technique that they learn, which is super cool. I don't use it a lot, but for some people, it's extremely helpful. The last example I have here of regulating when you're in sympathetic is bilateral stimulation. That's a really fancy way of saying use both sides of your body at the same time. So for a lot of us, an easy way to access this is just taking a walk. Like just walk in a circle around your bedroom if you need to. If you need a minute to get that steam down. You can also cross your arms and do a butterfly tap like this. What this does is it connects the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere of your brain together. When those are not bridged or connected, your emotions are going to take over. And your emotions, your sensations, they do not have a sense of time here in this side of your brain. So if there is something that's coming at you that reminds your body of a threat from the past, you will react in the same way as if it was that threat. But if you can connect that to time, which is on this side of your brain, and like I'm in the present moment, then the feeling that belongs to this space and time will come online. It's really quite cool how this works. If you've heard of EMDR therapy, that's how that works. It puts memories and triggers in their proper space on your life timeline. It's very cool. Some examples of regulation when you're in dorsal. Gentle activation, one small thing at a time. What I mean by this is think about the last time you were depressed. You probably were sitting down or lying down most of the time, right? So what gentle activation and doing one small thing at a time, it would not look like I'm going to get up and I'm going to take care of this to-do list and I'm going to do all of these things right now. It looks like I'm going to stand up. Just one small thing. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to go put on some mascara. I'm going to walk around the room. Then I might have a conversation with my child with a glass of water in my hand. Instead of just coming and trying to swallow the whole situation. I do this a lot when it comes to being completely overwhelmed with parenting, by the way. I have done this a lot, where you feel like this is urgent. I need to take care of this now. If something is falling apart in your house or your kids are going crazy. Actually, if I take a step back, I breathe, I stretch, I do one small thing at a time, I can come back to my kids and they might still be going crazy. Who knows? But I'm in a space where now I can handle it with clarity. Orienting is another thing you can use when you're in dorsal, which we talked about, and co-regulation. Co-regulation is beautiful. This is when you can borrow someone or something else's nervous system and regulate along with it. So you can do this with an animal, petting your dog, having a cat sit in your lap, any of those kinds of things. Animals are amazing for helping you regulate your nervous system. Or you can text a friend like, hey, instead of snapping at your kid right now, text your friend, oh my gosh, my kid is driving me nuts. I'm going to lose it. Even just that act of connecting with a safe other person is going to help you regulate and get your brain back online. Going to a public space, if you're really in dorsal in a bad place, like I will take my children to the library or to a coffee shop if I'm really, really low, because I will be able to see, oh, there's other people living life. And neurons in my body called mirror neurons are actually going to mirror the nervous systems of the other people there. I don't even have to talk to them. It's really cool. You can even co-regulate with a TV show. So if you need to turn a TV show on that makes you feel safe in your body, for me, it's Gilmore Girls to help you get out of this dorsal space. Like, do it. There's no shame there. Listen to what your body is saying and give it what it needs. This is how you're going to get back into a regulated space. I know this is a lot of talking, a lot of words, but what I am trying to get into for you is for you to know that in order to regulate, get back into a regulated space where you can be clear-headed, calm, confident, okay in any situation, but especially around your kids, you need to know what the tools are that work for you to regulate. So with all of my clients all the time, I have them make an emergency toolkit. What does that mean? It's just what works for me. So this is my personal emergency toolkit. It's a picture. I can look at it and say, oh yeah, if I go for a walk, I'm going to feel better. If I text a friend, I'm going to feel better. If I see the mountains, I'll feel better. Just put on some mascara, stretch, hug my dog. Get your emergency toolkit in place, and you can even do this with your kids too. Your kids can tell you, oh, when you give me a hug, I feel better. Or when I have this stuffed animal, I feel better. Or if they're older, like if you talk to me like this, I feel better. This is such a powerful way for you to say, I have autonomy here. I don't have to let these feelings take over my body. I can help myself climb the ladder and get back into a regulated space. If you did not get this yet, I want you to snag your 2 homework sheets. So this was like level 1 basic, okay? I completely understand that we have not covered everything by any means, and you're probably racing in your mind, but what about this scenario? What about that scenario? What if my child has ADHD? What if I have ADHD? All of these questions that you might be having, or like, this behavior is continuing and continuing, and I don't know what to do about it. That is all stuff that I would love to chat with you about on a follow-up call. So we can have 45 minutes together one-on-one for free, no strings attached, to just talk about you and your situation personally. So if you want to download these homework sheets, which I will email you again after this call as well, but you will have 2 sheets, and if you fill those out and then book a call with me, we'll be able to go through those sheets and talk about your specific triggers, your specific ladder, and help you come up with a game plan, not just to access regulating tools, but to also actually heal. And the difference is when you take the time to actually heal from the things that continue to trigger you from your past, to heal your nervous system from the inside out, a lot of your triggers will automatically start to calm down. And that's where the really powerful and juicy work comes from. And mama, you are worth it. Like, get the healing that you need so that you can be the calm, centered, and present mom that I know that you want to be. Here is a QR code and the link to book your follow-up call with me, you can do that now. Get on my calendar, and I will so look forward to talking with you. Here are just some of the things we could talk about in addition to your worksheets when we're on the call. Why your kids might be too muching. Why are they so much? Like, can you explain this to me? The role of the nervous system in child behavior, fight, flight, and freeze in your kid. Parenting in a connected way without ignoring bad behavior, avoiding conflict, letting your kids walk all over you, having to pretend or change your personality to be like Miss Rachel's, and without using overpowering and controlling techniques. We can talk about processing past traumas and learning how healing from them creates calmness in your nervous system and the opportunity to pass on calm nervous systems to your children. We could talk about anything else regarding healing from your past, helping you and your kids regulate, practical tools for getting them through highly emotional moments, and whatever you feel might be standing in your way. Last but not least, please go follow me on Instagram. I share a lot of free resources over there. I try to give as much as I possibly can. Let's be friends on Instagram.